everyone. I've been sorting my scraps this week, just pressing them and just getting them all to fit. And I thought I'd share with you how I organize them. I'm just interested in how other people do it, so I thought maybe you'd like this. Here's my stand, and this is where I keep my fabrics. It's just a 6 foot by 2 foot board on top, and I just have two of these 9 compartment you can just get them at a hardware store. Walmart carries them. And then I have these baskets, and those white baskets are the ones where I have my itty bitty scraps. And then in the other ones, I have my other ones sorted by color in these plastic bins. And some of them are overflow, so I have little baskets on top of the baskets. But here's what they look like. And I just fold them and dry. So this is my yellows and my oranges. And then I can just put a lid on them, and I just take them to, when we go south, I can just take the whole bin with me. And then I have the same little 9-part compartments down there. I have this bag on each of my itty bitties with where I put my scraps that have Heat and Bond light on the back of them, or adhesive on the back. And I'm going to share a project on what I do with just one of the projects that I do with these little itty bitty scraps that have that Heat and Bond on. Just thought you'd be interested. I've been working on them this week. It's sort of a Christmas gift, or they're cards and tags. So I'm going through these, and this is all sorted by my greens and my blues. And these all have that Heat and Bond light on the back of them. Just brought out some that I thought I'd want to work with. I just have a cardstock base here. It's like a craft color. And just cutting these down. Just making strips, and I'm just going to do somewhat of a shape of a Christmas tree. As I go, I am removing that paperback adhesive. And then I just take my iron, and I'm just going to give this a press. I've got this ball fringe, these tiny little balls. I'm just going to add one to the top. And I'm going to do this at the sewing machine. I'm just going to place it there for now, but I attach that with my sewing machine. I have a Friction heat erase pan here, and I am just doing a triangle shape, just a tree shape, just so I know where I'm going when I'm at my sewing machine. And then I thought I'm just going to add a little bit of red. Now this is just from my red scrap bucket. Does not have the Heat and Bond light on the back of it. I'm just going to lay that in place until I get to my sewing machine. And that one I'm going to set aside. That one's pretty much done. Now I've got another one that I've been doing. It's just this cute little gnome elf kind of a little character. And again, that green has that Heat and Bond light on the back of it. And I'm just cutting this hat shape. Removing that backing. And this one's just a really simple little sketch. I have to get that, I just almost made a mistake there, but you have to get that on that with an iron before you do this heat erase pan, or otherwise it's all going to erase. You notice I shook it out there. I was just trying to cool it off a little bit. And I just put a little nose and then his beard. And then at the sewing machine, you'll see what I'm going to do with that. And again, that little ball on the top of his hat. I also made some tags with this Christmas tree design. Again, very simple, just cutting these strips. I love saving these little scraps with the Heat and Bond light. I don't throw any of them away because they're just so nice to be able to do little projects like this. Occasionally I'll just grab an orange for a little beak on an owl, or just whatever I'm digging in. It's just really depending upon what kind of sewing you do is how you save and organize your scraps. Quilters are going to organize in a complete different way. But I'm more of a fabric collage person, a lot of embellishment, a lot of applique. So I save the little itty bitty pieces and I like to save them color coordinated. It's just an easy way for me to grab. I know where they are, and I can just, nothing goes to waste. I can just grab it when I need it. I did put a little bit of school glue on the back of this one, and then I'll iron this whole thing on. That school glue is going to dry really quickly with this iron. I wanted to add a little tie to the top of this. I'm using that same red fabric, and just taking my rotary cutter, and I'm just going to cut a strip of this off. I've got this really tiny little rotary cutter, and I love it. It's just for these little quick little, you can just zip right through this. I don't show it very well there, but I just cut up off a strip, and then I'm going to attach it to the top. I dug through my stamps, and I found a Merry Christmas stamp, and I'm using red in distress ink here, and I'm just going to stamp the word Merry Christmas on the bottom of this stamp. I'm off screen, but you'll see it in a bit here. And then I'm also just going to take my edger, and I'm just distressing the edge here with some brown ink just to give it some definition. To my sewing machine I go now, and I have my feed dogs dropped. I just have black thread on, and I'm going back and forth on this triangle shape. I want this to be quite bold, so I'm going back and forth. This is the point where you wouldn't even need to use a sewing machine, but I like to stitch everything. That's just who I am. But you could just fill this in with a black magic marker or some kind of a ink pen. But I just did it with a little bit of a just with my black thread, and I just used normal thread for this, and I just put that little ball fringe just underneath my pressure foot and just caught a couple stitches on it. And then on this little guy's beard, I'm going back and forth on it. I want to get it quite full. And then I took a look at it, and I thought his whiskers needed to go further up by his nose, and so I put it back under, and I'm doing it all over again. They just turned out really cute. It's so easy to do. And then onto the other card. Notice I just moved that little ball. I'm going to stick it under there now, just right underneath my pressure foot, lower my pressure foot, and then just catch it just with a couple stitches. And then off I go again, going back and forth. Now my feed dogs are dropped, so I'm doing all the moving on this. And I have my free motion foot on. And then going back up the other side. So a couple little things I wanted to do to complete these. First of all, this canvas just gets placed right on another card base. I want to color in his little nose too. So I'm just using one of my intense watercolor pencils. And then I'm going to just activate that with a little bit of just a little bit of fabric medium. And then on to the next one here. For this one, I added a piece of just writing paper on the back to cover up the stitches. I have this little tiny star, and I thought it would be cute to have a little star stamp right off on the side of that one. Oh, geez. And for the other card, I just stamped Merry Christmas on the inside. I hope you enjoyed this, everybody. I have some pictures at the end. Hope you have a chance to create this week. Bye for now.